All right, let's talk some Paramount, shall we? Going through my endless number of notes here, much of which have not actually, the reporting of which has not made air. But, you know, this morning, instead of going through we've already been through sort of the substance of the Ellison Skydance offer in terms of how potentially it would work. But let me bring you up to date, at least based on what I know, having spoken to any number of people who are around this process, both on the special committee side, the company side, on the Ellison Group side. And there you take a look at Paramount shares, which are up. By the way, waiting for the stepping down of Bob Bakish, the CEO. That not going to happen this morning, but very much anticipated after the close. I believe the company also reporting after the close. So we're waiting for that. As for the process under which this company may have a change in control, that is certainly a focus for many shareholders who have been less than enthused with the idea of control shareholder Sherry Redstone through National Amusements getting a large premium for her shares, while they got nothing except the promise of a higher stock price based on a merger with the Paramount studio and Skydance itself. What I can tell you is they have moved along here in terms of this exclusive negotiation that's been going on between the special committee and the Ellison Group. To the point where it is my understanding, at least, that they've gotten to basically kind of what they would call expect to be a final offer from Skydance. Now, things can always change. You can always tweak things. It doesn't appear that they're going to have a deal in hand as of the end of exclusivity on Friday. But perhaps they will get very close to at least having something that is close to that deal that could be signed up, brought to the control shareholder, namely that being Sherry Redstone. It does include, is my understanding, and this is an important component here and one that the special committee has been pushing for, what is essentially a premium that would be paid at least to B shareholders for some percentage of their shares, meaning, yes, you merge in Skydance through buying Skydance at roughly a $5 billion value. Then, as I've been reporting for weeks now, there would be a large issuance of stock, primary shares from the company that would be bought by Larry Ellison, by Redbird, by KKR, which also owns a part of Skydance right now, and potentially some other investors. But what would also be bought at a premium is some percentage of B holders' ownings. Can't imagine it's a large percent. I don't know what the number is. Would it be 10%? Who knows? But that is apparently part of what is essentially their sort of the offer that they have made to try to meet the objections of, or at least the worries of the special committee that feels like, hey, we have to offer some form of liquidity to the B holders so they feel like they've gotten something out of this, other than, of course, the merits of the transaction themselves, which, again, as I've reported in the past, include delevering, include what they believe would be a significant amount of cost savings to the tune of at least $1 billion, perhaps $2 billion, and to the prospect of having Larry Ellison as your essentially controlling shareholder in many ways, which wouldn't be a bad thing. Certainly he has very deep pockets. All of that, of course, is something the special committee, Jim, has to figure out as they weigh whether to sign this up, whether to see if they can get something out of Apollo and Sony that's real. Yes, I hear Sony would love to be there in some fashion, would love to own the studio as so many others would. Nothing has come in yet. Even though there's exclusivity, nothing stops the Sony from sending a letter in with some granularity and detail. Under what I'm hearing, at least the plan would be with Apollo and Sony teamed up. Sony would be the majority owner. They would merge, obviously, Paramount and Sony together. They'd throw Legendary in, which is controlled by Apollo. But all these things have a lot of regulatory risk. Well, Sony does. Okay. And by the way, I brought up the idea of the Japanese, whether they would be there for Sony USA in the end in terms of signing off on a deal that would require a lot of cash from them. But regulatory-wise, it's like, I mean, Apollo owns stations. What do you do with the station group? Do you have to get rid of that, too? So really, you're just buying the studio there because asset sales are a huge part of that potential transaction if it were to even come to the fore. And again, nothing has been sent into the special committee of any level of granularity, let alone at all from Sony, is what I'm understanding at this point. And then if you are the Ellison Group, Jim, you've got an FCC review. It's going to take some time. You've committed to a deal in which you're buying stock at a premium, by the way, over the current price. You're going to sit out there for 9 months while your capital is at risk. As the cash flow goes down, as you're dealing with an over-levered company that has yet to do that carriage agreement with Charter, which could end up in a not particularly good place. It's got a lot of risk to it.
That is fabulous reporting. Okay, so I listen to you and I think, okay, you mentioned Larry Ellison. So let's say Amazon were to try to buy Paramount. No, Justice Department would.
No way.
Kenner, no way. Let's say Apple wanted to buy it.
No
Jonathan
way.
Kenner, no way. Let's say Alphabet wanted to buy it.
No way.
How about the fourth guy who has the best network with the best technology and data analytics, which is what the Wall Street Journal says you need? How about Oracle? But not really. We make it Larry Ellison. Justice Department doesn't see through that. The deal gets done.
Yes.
Skydance has absolutely, what is $90 million in revenues? Like, which is better, DJT or Skydance? David, this is a backdoor way for a great American company to be able to own a company.
Well, Ellison, it would be obviously a very different approach for him.
But it's such a great
you would know,
Trojan horse.
You'd know that they'd be there. You'd know that there would be technology at the root of so much of what they're doing. And that certainly is the prospect that at least the Ellison Group is trying to present to the special committee. But it's very difficult for them. They got to look at, all right, status quo, which, by the way, this company is potentially going to be run by a committee starting tomorrow, Paramount. Ellison deal, or if you can really nail something down, it's a big premium from Apollo and Sony.
Absolutely.
And deal with the regulatory risk, then maybe you sign that up. But that hasn't come to the fore yet.
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of members, Simon and Garfunkel said no man is an island, right? But Larry Ellison owns an island. It's a huge island in Hawaii, which is fabulous. This would be chump change for him. And yet then they would be able to use the data analytics of Oracle, which are really fabulous, by the way. And, David, I don't know about Sony, but let me ask you, if it's Sony America, do they have any money?
Well, no, they've got the Japanese, which I pointed out would have to obviously sign on. My understanding is at this point they are supportive, but it always comes down to when you have to write the check.
But as you wait for this deal to get done, is the cash flow not going lower?
It's probably going lower.
Yeah. It's in the content business. It's protected by the government. Not to mention,
by the way, there's real questions about an NFL deal and whether that would be something that they'd be willing to sign up to with Apollo and Sony.
Got to throw around the NFL deal. Why don't you throw around
NFL's a key part of their programming.
Champions League? Why don't you throw around Champions League? How about, hey, David, the Masters?
A tradition like no other.
Yeah. How about Jalen? Remember how poorly he did for Villanova, and then he comes to your team, he looks great. Burns.
Jalen Brunson is amazing. I'm aware of who he played for. He played great for them, too.
I'm talking about March Madness. I'm throwing that in, too.
We got to go.